Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another thrilling discussion on all things Minecraft. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I am here in, where am I? Medford, Massachusetts, at a hotel, because we're here for Thanksgiving. And I'm trying to find a spot where there aren't a gazillion people, and we're by a fast road, but it's okay. It's very beautiful. And today we're going to talk about dealing with loss. You know, it kind of goes with the holiday theme. Just hold tight with me. I gotta walk by a rather large vent. Okay, there we go. And I mean, loss isn't fun usually, you know, part of life. But when it's the holidays, it can just be, you know, also that much worse, right? So there's all different kinds of loss. People tend to think of loss as death only, and obviously death is a loss. But there are all other kinds of loss. They're in the scale of loss. We keep talking about spectrum, right? So we've got over here, maybe in midlife, there's the loss of our body image being the same as it used to be. You know, maybe it takes a little more to maintain the same, you know, weight or look, or maybe no matter what we do, it's changing anyway. Might be getting a little chubs, you know, despite our efforts. So there's that kind of thing. You know, then there's like diabetics can lose a limb, or, you know, be overseas in war or an accident. We can, you know, lose parts of our bodies, and that's a huge loss. And then actually right now, Tommy and my husband and I have 4 friends from St. Mike's who are dealing with aging parents. Not just aging, I should say cognitive decline. All of our parents, we're all aging, I don't mean just that. But the cognitive decline, and it's a couple of them have Alzheimer's, and then there's one who had a series of strokes, who's actually fine physically, but she's got cognitive decline from that, and then also dementia. And even though they more than likely has a lot of years of life in them still, it's still a gradual loss for us as adults, because we start to grieve them knowing that they've got these diagnoses, but also the role in our life, you know. Especially, you know, that stuff's in the vault from being a small child. It's difficult to have that change, you know, the role that your parents had in your life, and taking care of you, and all the good memories of, you know, baseball and skiing and concerts and teaching you this and teaching you that and camping or whatever. To actually come to terms with that being a loss is, you know, can be very, very, very difficult. And also the loss of your own role with it, you know, having to be, you know, the mommy and the daddy, or the daddy and the daddy, and making these decisions to put them in assisted living and such, and it's just all really hard. And it's important to acknowledge these feelings that it's being hard. And there's also, I'm trying to find a good spot here also where it's a little raw and it's raining. There we go, I found another spot over here. When we grieve, again, it's not just, I don't mean just death, because that's really, really hard. And again, when people have lost somebody close to them, and now it's Thanksgiving and Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, the loss is hard on any day of the calendar. But obviously the holidays you're talking about, this just accentuate whatever's going on. They just make it bigger, and that can be in a joyful way, and that can also be in a hard way. So there's also a grieving process, and I think many people know there's a process to it. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross kind of coined this one a long time ago. See if I can rattle these off. There's first denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. That's how it goes. And it is a process, because it kind of, you know, we typically don't leap from denial to acceptance. It just doesn't work that way. And I think a lot of people don't realize that so I'm going to say for the most part, because we're all wired differently, we have to go from kind of one stage to the next. It has to kind of complete itself. So people often get stuck in the grieving process. They get stuck in denial. And denial, if you don't know, is originally sort of an unconscious defense mechanism. It's important to get that part, because unconscious obviously means that we are not aware of it. And so denial can often get us through in the short term, which is what it's supposed to do, and that's a good thing. I'm actually thinking of when my husband and I it was the longest week of my life, I'll tell you that. when we had our youngest, who was then about 10 months old. She lost most of her birth weight in 2 weeks. So we were actually had a police escort to the hospital. It was very scary. Scariest week of my life. She ended up fine, by the way. She's our spice child. Though during that week, we also met people. We met other parents. We were up on the oncology floor because that's what they thought it was. And after they checked for all the biggies, I didn't care what it was after we got through past the leukemia and got through that. And cystic fibrosis was the next runner-up, and we got through that. And then she ended up with basically never figured it out, but she's fine. And she's a little spicy, adorable young adult. Anyway, we met this family in there whose son was and is. I found out that he's sort of, well, not recently, but it was quite a while after that he's still fine. And that he's 17, and he was mowing the lawn and just kept, coming in and like exhausted and coming in. So long story short, 17, a very advanced leukemia. And denial, this is where I was going with this, denial is meant when we get, God forbid, somebody gets news like that, and he was a strapping football player. He had a prom day, his parents talking about the prom and his tux, and this happened like in a split second. He one day after he mowed the lawn and got tired, they just brought him in for a checkup, and they got this news within just a matter of minutes. And that's what denial's for. Denial is like, okay, let's get a second opinion, which is a good idea to do anyway. It's to give you a chance to get your bearings. So that's that defense mechanism being in place is a good thing. However, when it becomes a not so good thing is when it goes on longer than it's supposed to. And okay, so there's that. So the grieving thing, I can't believe, that my mother or father or whoever, somebody's got the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. Second opinions, it might be something else. We all lose our keys. We all forget to turn off the stove. It must be something else. And here comes Giovanni in Medford, Massachusetts. Where'd they go? There goes our youngest and our next to youngest. Right there with Giovanni in Medford, Massachusetts. And, okay, so the denial thing. And then we have the anger. And then we can get pissed. Because especially if somebody's young. Let's say like that with that example of those two parents. Being like, he's 17. He's, a football player. He's got this nice girlfriend. He's got his whole life ahead of him. This can't be. Why us? Angry, angry, angry. And that also makes a whole lot of sense, right? And then the bargaining. Like, maybe somebody got news that in their mid-50s or 60s after not taking great care of themselves, or maybe smoking their whole life. Now they just got the news that it's something, lung cancer. And the bargain, I'll stop smoking. Maybe having a chat with God, source, universe, like I promised to turn this around. Or maybe you lost, or you might almost lose somebody who's important to you. Maybe it's a partner. If I make all these changes, just make sure she's okay, blah, 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 blah. And then depression is the next one, when we realize the bargaining doesn't work, right? And we can just sink into a depression that this is real, whatever it is real. And then finally, acceptance, and that's the last stage. And obviously acceptance is when, the inner peace sets in, when we really become, okay with, sounds ridiculous to say that when it's something horrible, but really that is what happens. Become okay with whatever it is that the news is, and deal with it. So like our friends who are doing really well with it, actually, I have to say, with this big transition to bringing their parents and making that move to assisted living. It's just so different for them. But that acceptance piece is really so important. And so where it's going with this is that, those are sort of the 5 stages of grieving. It's that grieving is for more than just a death. That's the main thing. And also to realize that the grieving process typically needs to kind of finish. So if we get stuck in, the denial phase, that won't be good for us. Or the angry phase and hanging on to that, or any of the phases. We want to land at acceptance. And it's, so I would say reach out for as much support as you can, and talk. Like with our friends from St. Mike's who are going through this, it's just been so important to just have these conversations and continue to talk about it. And also with older friends of ours who are actually healthy in their late 70s and in our late in the late 70s. We've been talking a lot about, even though they're doing well, that it's scary to close in on 80 and 80s. And just to really be having these discussions about these changes and how scary they are is just so important. I can't say it enough. And kind of like we were saying before with, when the holidays suck for you, that one I just did, is most importantly is to really give yourself permission to feel. To feel is to heal. You got to feel. Got to feel, and you got to talk about it. It's the most important thing there is, and reach out for that support. Okay. Loss is loss, and there is rarely a good time for it, right? It happens, it's part of life. And reach out to those you love, and if necessary, obviously professional help. But support is key. Permission for your feelings is key. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from Medford, Massachusetts. Have a mindful day.